which is a new way of voting. Bob's going to go into that. It's pretty complicated. But hopefully we will be able to get a better understanding of how that process works. So the rest of the year, what I'm thinking of in terms of just the next month, we're going to have a class on the Constitution, the First Amendment, with Philip Hall Seaver from Erie will be coming out to do that one. We had another one scheduled, and the name we've given it is New Tools for Old Folks. So we need somebody who knows all about these new tools and who can talk to the old people. That's more difficult to find that person than I thought. But anyway, we may push that off into the fall. And then in the fall, we're talking about, there's a bunch of topics that we're kind of floating around. Term limits, conversation about term limits, county government. I went to the county meeting last night, and there's an awful lot going on there that most local people don't even know about. Gerrymandering is always a big topic. And then I've been reading some books on Christian nationalism. I don't even know how to have that conversation. Hi guys, come on in. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about for next year. We also have been batting around the idea of having one class, so to speak, a month, and then have another meeting where people just come and we talk about the topics. I'm not really sure how that will be structured, but I know that people have a lot that they want to say, and so getting together and having that ability is, I think it's helpful to all of us. Another event we're having June 27th, that's a Saturday, from noon to 4 at Wayner Park. You all know where Wayner Park is? Wayner Park is across from John McClain High School, behind Washington Township buildings. They have an amphitheater there, amphitheater and a pavilion. And so we have rented that, and Justin Wagner's going to be there. Kat DeVittorio, I don't know how to say her last name. She's running against
Jake Banta.
who?
Jake Banta.
Jake Banta. I can never remember his name. I wonder why. And then we have a bunch of music groups that are going to come out. So the idea is you bring your lawn chair, you bring a lunch, you bring a pizza, you bring a beer to share, and just kind of hang out and listen and maybe have some fun. Wouldn't it be nice to have some fun? So those are things that we have kind of lined up. And if anybody has any ideas, are you all on French? Is anybody not on French Creek Indivisible? Anybody not on the?
I'm not sure we are.
You are.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're on the
I'm
list.
there.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can email FrenchCreekIndivisible@gmail, and if you have ideas, things that you think would be helpful to move us forward to a better way of running our government. So tonight we're going to talk about ranked choice voting, which I knew nothing about until I started looking at it, and now I know this much about it because it is very complicated. But one of the things that really impressed me was the vote for the primary vote for the mayor of New York City. I think that was pretty impressive because that didn't turn out. That didn't turn out any way that anybody thought, at least nothing that I read. So Bob, this is Bob Rhodes, and Bob is, he says things sometimes, and it like twists everything around. I realize that I am pretty set in some of my ideas.
Other than being a felon, it's all right.
But he sometimes says things that really makes me understand a bigger picture than what I'm used to. So Bob is going to talk to us tonight about the ranked choice voting.
Okay, good,
So, one more thing.
okay.
We have a handout of the slides. We have, it's not a big slide presentation, there's only 7 slides, but I thought this would be easy.
We have some scheduling and technological problems. One, the technological problem is that the lights go off or they go on. They don't go partially off and partially on. But we have an expert back there in electronics who's going to turn the lights off when I need to show something on the slide. And turn them back on when we're all done discussing the slide. I won't have very many slides. I'm a political scientist, so sometimes I use words I shouldn't use, and don't hold that against me. I'll do my best to use proper English language. Ranked choice voting is easy to understand. What makes it difficult is that you've got 50 states, a legislature, a lower court, a lower legislature, a higher house in each of these states but one. And then you double what's going on in the federal government, the Congress with 2 different houses, a presidency, and you multiply and all of those variables, and you're into thousands of variables as to how ranked choice applies. There is, in fact, a political reason why it's so complex. It's made deliberately complex for the benefit of a particular party. Could be either party, depends on what time, where you are in American history. But, so it's complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. And I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. It's important. It isn't earth-shakingly important, but ranked choice voting will increase the amount of democracy and reduce the amount of corruption and reduce the unfairness of elections. And I'll show you where that fits in. This is a small group, so if you want to stop me at any point and ask a question, or just do so, okay? If there's something you don't understand, it isn't that complicated. These are bright people I'm looking at, so, okay. I got to wear glasses, and I've got a cold, so I'm going to stay away from you. Okay. Let me ask you a question to begin with here. How many prefer majority voting for candidates as opposed to plurality voting for candidates? Let me rephrase that again. How many would prefer that we vote for all public officials and have them elected only with majorities, or have them elected with pluralities? Do you know what I mean by a plurality?
No.
Okay, you got 5 candidates, and they've won their primary. They're going to run. They're going to run for the office that they're looking for: the governor's office, the member of the House, member of the Senate, whatever. And one gets 20% of the vote. The other gets 19% of the vote. The other gets 18% of the vote. The other gets 19% of the vote. And the other gets, I think, 24% of the vote, if I'm correct. You get a person who gets elected to a significant office with 24% of the vote. Think about that. And think about whether or not you want a democracy to represent majorities and consensus. Or do you want democracies that produce more conflict because you have a person elected to an important public office with 30% or 25% of the vote? Just intuitively, I'm not talking about Kant now. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so are you still asking the question whether we prefer plurality to majority or plurality to something else? I mean, what?
No, I'm asking right at the instant, would you prefer to have a public official? It's a rhetorical question. Would you rather have a public official be elected with a majority of the vote or a plurality of the vote? Majority.
Sign me up for
I think, as I say, it's a rhetorical question, but all of us, if we support democracies, would prefer a majority of the vote. if there's some mechanical way that we can do it. Ranked choice voting makes it possible to do it, not in every instance, but in many more instances, so we don't have so many problems with a majoritarian democracy. And we have problems, and I'm going to go through those problems, and how ranked choice can resolve some of those problems, not all of them. Okay. Somebody mentioned the California primary that's going on now. Now you're down to 7 Democrats. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't need to use it, okay. So you're down to 7 Democrats candidates. And you can't really believe the polls yet because they're bouncing all over the place. But you've got the real possibility of the 2 Republicans that are running in California and the 7 Democrats who are running in California in a jungle primary. I'll explain that in a minute. Where the 2 Republicans both can be elected in a plurality because they beat all the other Democrats' plurality. That's foolish. It is not a good system to select the governor. Here you've got a state that represents maybe 60% Democratic votes, as opposed to 40% or 38% Republican votes and a handful of libertarian votes and minority parties. Ranked choice voting would clear that up immediately. And I'm going to show it how I'm going to clear it up immediately. I'm also going to go on to something else before I show you how to clear it up immediately.
So what is California using right now? I thought they were...
They're using a jungle primary.
Okay.
A jungle primary is where you have people who are voting for either Republicans or Democrats or Green Party people or Libertarians or whatever. And they're free to vote for a Republican, a Green Party person, a Democrat. They can split their vote. Because in the jungle primary, unless it's a blanket jungle primary, because it's a little complicated, a jungle primary does not allow a party to select a candidate. You have to run, you can say, look, I prefer to be voted, I prefer to be with Republicans, or I prefer to be with Democrats. You can say that. You can even put a little R or a little D or a little I next to your name. If you go through the legal procedures in California that allow you to get into the jungle primary. You have to have a certain number of votes and qualified people signing it, just like in this state, except that all the rest of the stuff is different than in this state, because this is a closed primary state. Back to the jungle primary. You still with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you identify as a party and you have the party endorse you, then it's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional because it violates the First Amendment. I won't go into that in any great depth, but it has to do with the possibility of somebody voting for somebody really bad in the Republican Party and not the best person, and slipping over in order to make the Republican lose. And you don't want to do that. It's not fair to have another party join the first party and do them evil because you don't know whether the person voting in that party is a Democrat or a Republican, a Libertarian or whatever. But if you keep it apart from the endorsement of a party, a jungle primary is a good thing because it can be used for ranked choice voting, both at the primary level, both at the selection of candidates at the primary level and at the level where you're selecting the governor. And at this point, then, I want to show you, I will in just a minute, I want to show you what a ranked choice program looks like. The third thing, which is the big thing that I'm just introducing and then I'll explain it in a great deal more detail, is that we have a government where if you take the number of people who are the population of let's say, a congressional district, and then you break that down to the population of people who are eligible to vote. Not actually voting, but they're eligible to vote because they're of the proper age, they're in the district, they're eligible to vote, and therefore they're the eligible voting population. Of the eligible voting population, I'm not going to do a lot with this, but I want to start. Of the eligible voting population, primary voters in that population will represent 17 to 20% of the total vote. The others will ignore the primary. We've got to change that, because it gets to the point where you have, our point right now, in the Congress of the United States, 435 members, 5% of those congressional districts are competitive. The others are just smooth. You can be elected for the rest of your life. It's a breeze. You don't have to worry about elections. You show up for elections, of course, but you don't really have to worry about serious contenders. That's 23 to 25 House members, congressmen, out of 435, which are in sinecures. You want to ask some questions about that, talks about that? That's it. And sometimes it can even be lower. Now that you've got gerrymandering going on in both the Democratic and Republican Party, you've got a huge contest to go on to find out whose voters you can pick, so you don't have to really run seriously for an election. That could go down to 15, 13 out of 435 congressional seats. Is this a democracy? Or is it a lordship? Ranked choice voting can help that out.
It can help it out with the
It can help it out by expanding the number of districts that are competitive in Congress and bringing back majoritarian democracy. I haven't demonstrated that. I've got a lot more to say about that, but I wanted to introduce all of this before I then explain it. These are three areas where ranked choice voting are really important to bring back our democracy.
Who
There are a lot of other
determines
things, too.
ranked choice? Who
Sorry?
determines that you can do this? Is it the state legislature, or?
Good question. Yes, ranked choice voting, like virtually all of the regulations for voting, come from the states by constitution. The federal government, regardless of what Trump says, the federal government has minimal responsibility for creating the rules, the time, how you elect your people in the primaries, both federal primaries and state primaries. Those are decided by the state legislature.
So when a state does that, is it across every district in the state, for that state? Like in Pennsylvania, would it be totally across the state? It's not selective?
Yes, no, it's right across the state.
Okay.
Pennsylvania is a closed primary. There are 10 closed primaries in the United States. New York is one, Pennsylvania is one. I better not guess at the other 8. It means that you have to be registered as a Republican, or registered as a Democrat, or registered as another party, and then you're not allowed to cross from one party to another. You have to vote on a Republican ticket or a Democratic ticket, depending upon what you have registered for. And you can still, well, it's very difficult to have ranked choice voting in that case. You can still do it. You could have ranked choice voting within a party, but it doesn't work too well. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, how is it that in this pre-census, Indiana, all these states could change the rule mid-census, between the two censuses, and get away with that?
Boy, that's a good question. And I can't answer it. They've gotten away with all kinds of things that are illegal, that are unconstitutional, that are not part of the norms of normal elections. And that's part of democracies. It's folks like you who follow the norms, who insist on saying that's not normal, that's not the way it works. And those 80,000 people who work in the polls, and I'm looking at some of them, those 80,000 people across the United States that look at the polls, Democrats and Republicans, have faced off against Trump, have faced off against other kinds of corruption with courage. And that's an important part of American democracy. And there are others who have not faced off, but have succumbed. And we have corruption. In the 19th century, we had corruption that decided presidents. I'll give you, should I do it? Yeah, I'll give you a quick one. Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland was a Democrat in 1888, who was running against Harrison. No, Hayes was the Hayes-Tilden race was 1876. It's good that you remember that one, that's a big one. But in 1888, and he was running as a Democrat. Now, the Democrats were very strong in the South and very strong in opposing the restoration of Reconstruction. They were racist. The center of the Democratic Party in 1888 was racism. And the center in the Republican Party, very small, had the source of anti-racism and civil rights. Not very big, it got bigger in the 50s. That's hard for Democrats to swallow, but in the 50s, the Democratic Party was still dominated by racism in the South. They controlled the committees, and you better believe that they controlled who ran and who was successful in those congressional races. And then it changed. Just normal people were able to change it with the Civil Rights Movement. And in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which was voted in by mostly Republicans, because the racist Democrats were still in Congress in '64. And they sided with Northern liberals to bring about the Civil Rights Bill. So when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, I'm not just talking about Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about a system in which both Democrats and Republicans can either screw things up or save democracy. Charlotte, did I go off?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. Let's see now. Why did Al Gore lose the presidency if he had over 600,000 votes over George Bush the second?
Supreme Court.
Hanging chads.
Electoral college.
Yeah, that's what I thought until I did the research. It wasn't the hanging chads. It was Ralph Nader.
Oh,
yes.
yes, the Green
Yes.
Party.
Ralph Nader got 98,000 votes as in the Green Party in Florida, which was enough to have Gore lose that election. Gore would have won the election. Just for that alone, that's 30 electoral votes. But he also, all he had to do was to win New Hampshire. And Nader got 23,000 votes. And those were votes that belonged to left-wing Democrats. They were ecology votes. They were socialized medicine. I don't like to use that phrase because it's not really socialized medicine, but socialized medicine people. They would have voted for the Democrat, for Gore. That's a third thing that I wanted to mention. That if we had ranked choice voting, the ranked choice voting would go right through, and Nader would be removed, and then Bush would be facing Al Gore, and Al Gore would have won the presidency. What else can I tell you to motivate you not to go to sleep? Okay. I also want to talk about something very complicated, but I'm not going to do that until I get to that point. But it's what we can do about the business of 5% of the congressional seats are the only ones that are really competitive. And I want to show you that again. Okay.
Ready for another slide?
Yeah, why don't you show the next slide? I forgot what it is. Oh, yes. I'll just let it hang out there for a little while. I guess you can see that without the lights going off. No, you don't need to turn the lights off. That's fine.
Do you want to lock?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I want to go through some American history, as you probably know. When I was a kid, Carol and I think, wrote these papers in this class about the nature of the American Revolution. It was the kind of thing that a professor would give you. Was there an American Revolution, or was it just a war of independence? It's a cute little way of asking, do you really get revolutions from revolutions, or do they come slowly after the revolution? But we certainly got a war of independence, which the British lost. We didn't win it, they lost it. Now there's a cute way of asking about what war does. But I think that there was a war of independence, but what did we get? We got a government right away. Federal government right after the Constitution. We invented constitutions. There was not a major nation that ever had a written constitution. We invented the separation of church and state. We didn't even call it that. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, though prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's not really the separation, but that's another topic we'd have to explore. And we got rid of entail and primogeniture. And any of you who are aficionados of what's the
British TV.
of Downton Abbey. Okay, you know about entail and primogeniture. Entail means that you can't split up your estate. You have to keep your estate, so the lords will remain the same family of lords. And primogeniture means that the oldest male gets to inherit the land, so that so you can maintain the British system of landed aristocracy. And much of that was maintained, in fact, in the South. Scots, Irish, and English who came into the South with slaves and were maintained by those kinds of things. Well, they gave them up in the American Revolution. And that was revolutionary. It was a first step, but it was revolutionary. But there was a war of independence. And we started out with a government where the Senate was selected by the legislature. Noble men with land. All men who voted, almost all, were white. Almost all men had property, landed property. Very few black people were voting, some of them in the North. And women didn't get the right to vote until 1919, although there were some women in some states that could, usually wealthy women, who could vote. So you had a very narrow street to walk to get to an American democracy based upon majority voting. You only voted, and if you had to be male, if you had to have land, and you had to be in a special district, then you could vote in the House of Representatives. You also had, from the get-go, gerrymandering that is worse than what we have now. After all, it was Elbridge Gerry, who was the governor of Massachusetts about 1812, who invented it. And they've had it ever since. What else did you have that was undemocratic at that particular time? You had a I would stick with the Supreme Court, but the one thing I want to talk about is, how do we select our president?
Supreme.
Not you, you're just,
Electoral college.
we're just, you know,
Collateral.
right, we electoral college selects the president. And now I can get to this. Okay? Yeah, no, that's all right. Well, that's all right, leave it off, that's fine. That's fine, I'll probably stumble over here. Electoral college, I did this myself. I looked at 60 presidential elections since 1790. Washington had 2 years and then 4 years. And by the way, Washington was, when the Treaty of Paris was signed, just before the first elections for the American presidency, Alexander Hamilton offered George Washington a crown. And if he had accepted that crown, we would have had a monarchy, because Washington was the most popular person in the former American colonies. And he just said, we just beat a crown, we just defeated a monarch. And so he refused the crown. little things like that, and big things like that, actually make for a democracy when he did that. And Hamilton then became a Federalist and a classic, brilliant conservative, author of many of the Federalist Papers. And both of these people didn't expect political parties. Madison was opposed to political parties. He wrote Federalist number 10, opposed to factions. And within 4 years after writing the Federalist Papers, Madison was the head of the Democratic Party, and Hamilton was the head of the Federalist Party. You can't have a democracy without parties. You have to control factions, and that's how you control factions. Anyway, back here. You got 60 presidential elections. 40 of them were won in the Electoral College by the same person who won the majority of the votes, and that's what we want to see. Okay? 15 of the elections were won in the Electoral College and won with a plurality of the vote. That is, the president didn't win a majority, but he won a plurality. That's okay. 5 of them, that's bad. 5 of them lost in the Electoral College, but won the majority of vote. I mean, Hillary Clinton is a perfect example. In 1876, the Hayes-Tilden election. That was a tragedy, but Tilden won that election. He had the popular vote. They said he didn't have the popular vote, but the Republicans at that time, excuse me, I have a cold. I don't want to lose my voice here. But the Republicans at that time knew that Tilden had only one more electoral vote that he had to find. And they had, not just the Republicans, but other people had destroyed some 20 votes. I didn't put that quite, they destroyed the votes that were toward 20 of the electors. And the results then went into the House of Representatives when the Electoral College can't decide, because they're missing the votes. Stagecoaches that were tipped over, things that were thrown in the river. We're just 11 years away from the Civil War. And a deal was made in the House of Representatives, where it goes when the Electoral College can't decide. It was made with the Southern Democrats and the Northern Republicans. This was the beginning of the Conservative Coalition. Sorry. And the deal was made by the Democrats: if you call off Reconstruction, we'll vote for the Republican candidate. Real dirty pool. And that's what happened in 1876. It was a real tragedy because the Democrat Tilson was the first non-racist Democratic candidate following the Civil War. Excuse me. And he was ready to reform the system. He was from New York. How he got nominated, I don't know. He was from New York. Thank you. My wife is giving me drugs here. Where am I here? So that's Hillary Clinton's vote. She won by 2.5 million votes, but she didn't win in she didn't campaign in the right states. She didn't campaign in the swing states enough. And Al Gore, we've already talked about how he lost that election. He won the majority of the votes, but he lost the election. And Samuel J. Tilden lost an election by hook and crook in 1876. Now, the two people who won, lost in the Electoral College, but won the plurality vote were Grover Cleveland in 1988, I commented on that, and also Andrew Jackson in 1824, who had the plurality over John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams. But Adams had the votes in the House of Representatives, and it went into the House, and Clay hated, Henry Clay, who was a major figure in the House, did not want Jackson to get the vote. I don't like Jackson either, but I don't think that's the appropriate way to do it. So you have 5, thank you very much. You have 5 different times in the American presidency. Now, what bothers me is that 2 of those 5 times have occurred in just the last 20 years. Do we have any other questions or comments? With that? Okay. I want to be able to stop that with using ranked choice voting.
New slide? New slide? A new slide? You want me to,
Yeah, show me, now we can get to the ranked choice voting.
here we go.
Can you, person like, here's a little primitive conditions here, but. Don't worry about primitive conditions. Carol and I were in Peace Corps once, teaching in a mud house, and what we had to be concerned about were the snakes. The first day, we're up in there, until we could figure out they never come down, so nothing bad is gonna happen. This is how ranked choice voting works. Now, you've only got 3 people here. Sorry, you have 3 people in the election, so it's pretty simple. On the first vote, the first round, candidate A gets 44%, not a majority. Candidate B gets 33%, not a majority. Candidate C gets 23%. And what you do after this, and you can do it in a computer in a second, you take all the votes from C, and you redistribute the votes to B and A. And this is the redistribution of the votes. Candidate A gets 12% of the first votes that go to C. Candidate B gets 11% of the votes from C. The result is that A has 56% of the vote, B has 44% of the vote. You just take the votes that go to the person on the bottom who's losing, who's on the bottom, you eliminate that person's candidacy, and you take the first votes that they get and give them to whoever the people who voted for C assign them to. One other thing I have to mention, you've got to vote 3 times. Now, you don't have to legally vote 3 times, but it's in your interest to vote 3 times. You assign a 1, a 2, or a 3, the 3 being the top one, the 2 being the middle one, and the 1 being the one on the bottom. And there's also kind of hanky-panky. People can try, but it doesn't really work very well. You can bullet vote. It doesn't help you. It means that if you bullet for the last person, none of your votes are going to count for anybody. So in this way, you reach a majority. That is in accord with how people want to vote.
So, in ranked choice voting, the way you explained it, and it's that the person who people voted as first would be A, second B, and then third C.
Right.
Now, the division of C among A and B, is that done in a separate balloting, or is it proportionate to the number of votes that they got, or is it how they rank choice them next?
They rank choice it in a computer. They don't have to do it on a computer. They can count the votes, but you can just as well rank choice it in a computer. So when you make your vote, they can know within seconds who's won the election.
So in other words, when you're voting, you're doing the ranking yourself. So me
Yes.
as a voter, I would say, I want A first, I want C second, I want B third.
That's right.
And that's how that computation would get.
That's right.
entered.
And you can have not just 3, you can have 4. That's more common. And the same things happens with 4. You can do 20. You can do that jumbled primary and do the primary with ranked voting, and then you can do the general elections. You can say that 20 people are voting, we're going to choose the top 4 and then we're gonna do ranked voting for the top 4. And you still arrive at a majority. It'd be a little unusual to have 20, but it's not unusual to have that jungle primary. In fact, Alaska and Maine, who have done ranked choice voting quite often, they're not going to do it this year. No reason why they should, because they've already winnowed down the candidates to 2 in Alaska and 2 in Maine. And that's all right, that's what you want to see. And then you have a majority result. But if you have 3, I'm going to show you one from Alaska in 2022, where you had 3, where it made a difference. Yeah,
Okay, so I just want to make sure that when I'm explaining this to other people, that I have it right. So A, B, C, and then C, the number of votes that, from C that go to A, are the people that rank C as second?
no, the people who rank C first, their votes then become second votes, and they go into A and B. And C then may have a lot more votes for A than they have for B. And then A picks up more votes, and they in fact do pick up just a little bit more votes. They pick up 12%, and B picks up 11% of
But
votes.
how does C go into?
Wait,
Yeah. How does C?
How does C go into A or B? What
Yeah.
triggers that?
If you voted for C first and C's out, then whoever you voted for second goes to number, your vote goes to them.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that's basically.
So you
yeah,
vote
that's
for
fine.
C first, and then your second choice is A.
Or B.
C drops out, so your second choice becomes
The first.
your primary.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And of course, you're doing this all at once.
Yeah,
You're voting for A,
Yep,
B,
yep.
and C all at once.
Okay.
right.
So another question, you mentioned the term bullet. What does that mean? Like you have A, B, and C, you just vote for one? Is that what you mean?
Well, you could do that. I
Well,
mean,
you said that- yeah.
some people try to play this system. It's very hard to play this system. I mean, you can do it. You're not required to vote
1, 2, 3.
3 votes.
Yeah.
You're not required to have 3 votes. You can take just one. But if you haven't chosen the right person, you're finished with your influence.
Right, okay, yeah.
I'm going to be talking about some other sociological impacts of this. Well, I'll talk about one so you know what I'm talking about here. If you go into a discussion group on television, or not a discussion group, but a television program, and you're going to debate 4 or 5 different people, debates are horrendous. They say everything mean they can think of. They lie, they cheat, they emphasize things that have nothing to do with good government. If you are in a group of 5 people competing for, let's say, a congressional seat, and you start bad-mouthing somebody among those 5 people in that television program, the people who like that program in ranked choice voting are not going to be happy about you. They may vote for you, and then they find out you're really bad-mouthing the person who is your favorite. You've got to become more civil, because it's going to act badly on you. And if you expect to get the vote after your candidate loses and switches to the other candidate. You follow me? If we're all running, all 4 of us are running for office, and we're in a debate, and we start calling each other names, and then we vote, and we want to vote for the candidate, one of the candidates that's going to lose, but we want to vote for him. He's our favorite person, she's our favorite person. We don't know for sure. But, and then we hear this person we think might be a good second alternative bad-mouthing the person we really like. Just think of the sociology of that. What ranked choice voting does is to make politics more civil.
But did that model get broken? Because I watched Trump debate several times, and there wasn't a nice thing he said about anyone.
There was no ranked choice voting then. That's just straight across the board, win or lose.
In the primary.
In the primary, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I'm wrong on that. It isn't straight across the board, win or lose. there are not very many necessary winners, but you have to be just, you get most of the votes, but you don't have to get the majority of the votes to get the nomination. Good question, Steve.
Broke the mold.
Anybody else here? Okay.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide. I don't know what it is, but it's gotta be something interesting. Yeah. It gets a little bit more difficult, but this is too difficult. There are lots of different kinds of primaries, and I select the ones that are most generic. And I want to talk about them in the context of ranked choice voting. Closed, that's ours, Pennsylvania. Only party members can vote, and you understand that very well. And there are 10 of the 50 states that have closed primary. Open, voters restricted to one party ballot. That is, you can enter the election, but you've got to vote a Republican, you've got to register as a Republican or as a Democrat, and then vote the ticket that's on that particular party. And
How's
that,
that
of course, would be a
different from
primary.
How's that different from closed?
Yeah, how's that different from closed?
That's different than a closed because you have voters coming in who have, and it differs from state to state. So I'm kind of fledging a little bit. You could have voters come in and they can register Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever right off the bat, right then and there.
At the polls.
At the polls, yeah.
So is that
Or they
like,
can register earlier, but they've got to stay with that party when they vote. And
is that a registration or just a preference for a party ballot that you ask for?
the preference is the next one down. The open, no party ballot, but a preference. Voters can cross-vote in a jungle primary. That's California. That's a number of other states as well. They can come in and they have to register, but they don't have to register as a Republican or a Democrat. They can vote in a jungle primary as long as the candidates are not identified by a particular party as their party that they have to run with.
So in an open, if you're a Democrat, the day of voting, you can change it to Republican, to get the Republican ballot?
Yeah, that's right. You can vote on a Republican ballot. You can also vote on a Democratic ballot
Okay.
in a jungle primary. The first one that was declared unconstitutional when you don't have a distinction between the parties that identified a voter as their, the parties that identify a candidate as their own candidate. That's a jungle blanket primary. Sometimes you'll see that expression. But when you can say, I don't have a particular, I'm not a member of a particular party, but I have a preference.
Right.
Then you can vote Republican or Democrat, as long as it's a preference, and there's no identification of the formal party for this particular candidate.
Okay. So
That's
is-
what
is-
California has.
So, open, voters are restricted to one party. And I think I just heard you say it could be a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? I heard,
Yes, you could be an independent and vote on a Republican for a Republican.
okay.
Okay, and then open, no party ballot, top two winners compete in a general election. That is very similar to the preference voters, except that you don't have any identification at all for Republicans or Democrats. And the top two winners compete in a general election. That is the California one. I shouldn't have pointed out the third one. That's the California system. And that's a system which is most common with ranked choice voting. You have a jungle primary, and then you use ranked choice voting to select the people out of the primary. You can also use, as Alaska and Maine do, you can use ranked choice voting to select the final candidate.
So which one was used for the primary in New York City?
It would be the they're all different, so it would be the open, let's see. It's going to be open top 3 or 4 because there were several candidates. Decided by ranked choice voting. The important thing is that was chosen by ranked choice voting. And there are a number of cities, Portland, Oregon, I can't remember them all, but Portland, Oregon is the one that has ranked choice voting for their mayors. That's not uncommon.
So are you saying Zoran Madami identified as a socialist Democrat?
I think he did. I don't know whether he did.
But on the ballot, when he was identifying himself, people came in and said, I'm a socialist Democrat.
Yeah, it's curious, because he can do that. He can say, I'm a socialist. He can say, I'm a
Democratic.
Democrat, I'm a Republican. But that's not an identification with the Republican Party in New York,
Okay.
or the Republican Party, or a socialist in Manhattan, or
Okay.
something like that. And you can ask, that's a fine line, and that fine line has been drawn recently in 1922 by the United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
Anybody else?
In some of our local elections in Crawford County, I've heard of candidates cross-filing. So they are running on both tickets.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how that's allowed.
It is because they get the endorsement of both parties. And if you get the endorsement of both parties, and then you are a Democrat, you can vote in the Democratic ballot. Or you can vote, if you're a Republican, in the Republican ballot. You can't switch around. But if you get the endorsement of both parties, then you're voting for a Democratic endorsement, or you're voting for a Republican endorsement, same thing. It is confusing, because there are some people who can do that.
Does that mean the Democratic ballot and the Republican ballot both have your name on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what judges do typically, they cross-file.
So, school board too.
School-
Now, judges in Pennsylvania are not supposed to have an endorsement.
Right.
But you know when you talk to the judge. I mean, but they are not supposed to have an endorsement of the Republican or Democratic Party or any other party. It's supposed to be nonpartisan in Pennsylvania. Any other, all kinds of wonderful questions here. Anybody else? Okay.
Next slide.
I think so.
Here we go.
Yes. Now, this is November 8th, 2022, and the election actually is, I better stay over here, I feel like I remember their names. Mary Petola, and Sarah Palin, you know her, and Nick Basic are running in the final election under a ranked choice voting in Alaska. That's after a jungle primary. And you can see the first vote, first round, Mary Petola gets
49%.
48%, and Sarah Palin gets 25%, and Nick Begich is also a Republican, and he gets 23%. He's eliminated, and those votes that people cast for Nick Begich did not go very large numbers to Sarah Palin. They went to Mary Peltola. I always have a hard time pronouncing her name. So she wins with 137,000 votes to 112,000 votes for Sarah Palin, and that's the way that Rick Coyce did. And that is a consequence of him not liking Sarah Palin, his voters not liking Sarah Palin, his voters being Republicans who were voting for the Democrat. That's why parties often don't like ranked choice voting. There are 22 states that have made it illegal for any ranked choice voting to take place in the state. At school boards, at the legislature level, at anything like that. Guess what party that is?
Republicans.
Whig Party.
It's a party that wants a president of the United States to play a major role in selecting who is going to be the candidate for the Republican Party for state legislatures like Indiana or legislatures all over the United States. The Republican Party is very frightened about ranked choice voting. I'm not trying to be partisan here, because there would be times where the Democratic Party, 100 years ago, would have been frightened about ranked choice voting. But right now, the one that's frightened is the Republican Party, because they stand to lose big from ranked choice voting. They want to control the nominees. Anybody else?
So why did Alaska go with ranked choice voting? Because it's basically a Republican state, isn't it?
But it's a libertarian state.
Yeah. Freedom.
And they didn't like the fact that the President of the United States was trying to tell them who to vote for. And in fact, this is understandable. Mary Peltola and Lisa Murawski, both supported each other vocally. A Republican and a Democrat both supported each other vocally against Sarah Palin, and for that matter, Kasich as well. Ranked choice voting promotes cooperation between parties, and that's what you want to see if you're going to have the Congress of the United States govern, rather than sit and do nothing. It's amazing, isn't it?
So is it up to the state legislatures to determine whether to go with this method?
Yes,
And most state legislatures, the 22 states are Republican.
they're all but one are Republican legislatures.
What was the Democratic one?
Help.
Okay,
No, I was just wondering which was the one Democratic state that went
I'm sorry,
against.
I'm hard of hearing.
Which was the Democratic state that voted against ranked choice voting?
You know, I should know, and I don't know if the governor is a Democrat, and I should know, but I can't remember which one it is.
I can look it up.
But that's pretty damning. You have 22 legislatures, and 21 of them are Republican, and they banned ranked choice voting.
So how many
All
states are using it right now? How many states are using ranked choice voting?
Well, in the last 90 years, we've had, most of the states have had ranked choice voting.
No, I mean right now.
Right now, there are 7
7.
that, it doesn't mean they're using it, because they have to have the right conditions to use it. They have to have more than 2 candidates who are running against one another. But there's 7 right now, and there are others who would do it, and there are many cities who do it. And as I think I said, there are countries that do it as well, Ireland, and New Zealand, and I can't think of the country right now. Australia. Okay,
Next slide.
next slide. Okay, now it gets complicated, just gets complicated. It's a sign of a really good audience when you've not looked at your notes at all. But I want to know where I am here. Oh, yeah. Okay, there are about 740,000 people, some citizens, some not citizens, in each congressional district. The number is a constitutional number. There are a large number of people who are not eligible to vote. Children, of course, people in mental hospitals in many respects, nursing homes, prisons, that's a really large one, and non-citizens. So when you cut all of that down, you get to about an average of about 140,000 potential voters. a lot of those voters won't register. So, but they're eligible voters, they can register. So we count them as the total eligible voting population. It's about 140 per congressional district. It can change, because if you're, let's say if you are Wyoming, and the average person in Wyoming, they get one congressman, is about 590, average person. The average number in the state is about 980. I'm gonna get it right yet, is about 580 persons. And then you would break that down into the 120, 140 range of people who are eligible. By the way, a person in Wyoming has a senator that has 65 times the power of a senator in California. Because they're a small state, the senator represents about 120, 140 people. California has just under 40 million people, and yet they're getting the same representation, just 2 people from California, that Wyoming is getting. That's one of the things that was created by the founding fathers in the construction of the states, in order to bring those states in. I just talked to somebody about this last night. I've forgotten who, but when the American Revolution took place, they had to bring the South in. And they had to promise the South that they could count 3/4 of their slaves to identify how many people they would have in the Congress. And so they had a huge advantage there. And then they had another advantage, because they were relatively small states, except for Virginia. They had an advantage there, in order to keep them in the Congress, even though they represented about 1/3 of the, well, less than that, about 1/4 of the population. They were able to control the Senate until it just got too difficult to have them control the Senate, and we had the Civil War. So these measurements play a major role in constitutional government. Okay, now let's take that 740 figure and then down to 140,000 eligible voters, and then you look at the number of 140,000 people who actually turn out to vote, register to vote, and then turn out to vote. It tends to be about 19% on an average across the United States. It can be as low as 14 in Pennsylvania, or as high as 27% in Pennsylvania for an election that is an off-year election, that is not a presidential election. That's a very small number of people, but we haven't finished. 19% turnout for Democrats and Republicans. Split that in half. I'm just making this an average to make the point. Split them in half. 9.5% of the eligible population for Democrats and for Republicans. If you're in the Republican primary, 9.5% of that, you can win with 6% or 5.5%. And that happens quite often. People will win a congressional race in the primary with 5.5% of the eligible voting population. Remember that 95% of the House of Representatives are safe seats. So you have people winning a safe seat for a long period of time. All they have to do is control 5.5% of the vote. Think about that. That's not a very democratic situation. It's no wonder that you have people wanting to be in a safe seat and not a competitive seat. And they talk to the Speaker of the House of their party about getting a safe seat, so they have a sinecure. Any thoughts about that? Yes?
But if more people voted, it would eliminate that whole safe seat business, wouldn't it? Or at least reduce it.
Tell me again.
If more people voted, then it would help reduce that safe
Good for
seat
you.
business,
Yeah.
right?
And how you get more people to vote? Well, one of the ways you get more people to vote is to have ranked choice voting.
Right.
because the number of people in that case will go up. I love it when people make my point.
Because ranked choice voting is that much more popular than?
It would be because you'd have your own person running for office and not somebody else you don't care for or you don't know very well. But we know that voting goes up as you have ranked choice voting.
Okay, interesting.
There are people who would say that's not true, but they haven't done the research.
Interesting.
So winning the primary is equivalent to winning the election in every case, because these are safe seats. You don't have to leave until you're ready to retire, go into a nursing home. Although there are a lot of congressmen, you wouldn't know them. Well, that's not- Okay,
Next slide. Bob?
yeah, no, the next slide is the one that's not colored.
Well, you still got some,
Okay, try it, let's see what happens.
you got some, dark and light and,
I couldn't make this, I don't have a printer, there's a colored printer, so I couldn't make the proper slides. And it doesn't, it's hard to identify the 22 states that I mentioned. And in fact, when I did this, it was 19 states. Things have changed very rapidly in the last 3 or 4 years. The states that have been prohibited from having ranked choice voting have all been prohibited within the last 3.5 years.
are
Wow,
those the white ones like Nevada,
no.
That's right.
Nebraska?
No, the white
No.
ones are where there's no state addressing
No, they're
ranked
not
choice
doing
voting.
anything with it.
It's sort of the gray area, the gray.
Yeah, and that's true of Pennsylvania, we have no
Okay,
states, we have no statutes that,
so the two dark gray ones are the ones that are using it.
yes, it's
Maine
Alaska and Maine.
Alaska. And
And
then the
the
dark,
map isn't very good, because there are other states that it's legal to do in,
Uh-huh.
but they just decide not to do it.
so that's the darker gray, like
The darker gray,
Washington
yes.
and Oregon and
California.
California.
Washington, Oregon,
Okay,
Ohio,
Ohio,
Virginia.
Virginia, Wisconsin, Maryland,
Well,
oh, Minnesota.
but California has voted to do it, correct? The governor certainly is an example.
The law can be used, as I understand, but it has to be approved by the legislature. They've had ranked choice voting at some levels in California,
Okay.
but they don't have ranked choice voting
For
in
the
the general
whole
primary.
state. Yeah, they decide where.
And they decide, yeah.
It's the legislature, the state legislature that decides that a mayor can run on ranked choice voting.
That's right.
But over here, they can't,
That's right.
or for the governor.
Oregon has its mayor, Portland, run on a ranked choice vote. I know that.
So what's in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania has nothing. They're not opposed to ranked choice voting. They're not in favor of ranked choice voting. They just have no statutes for ranked choice voting.
So what would it take for us to get ranked choice voting?
Getting
The
rid of,
legislature to agree to it, but and the legislature would say, well, I've been here 20 years.
I'm not,
Why would I want to get into ranked choice voting
Yeah.
if
But
they're going to
isn't-
speak honestly to you?
But isn't it even worse than that in Pennsylvania, because bills are killed depending on who the top 2 people are, and they decide what goes forward?
Yeah.
Did I see something that Pennsylvania, though, they're trying to get an open primary? I
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
some bills they're trying to do, not open.
Yes.
You didn't have to be a Democrat or a Republican, you could be an independent and vote.
Yes.
But that would be a legislative change, which is not gonna happen in Harrisburg,
That would be a legislative change.
which is not gonna happen in Harrisburg.
not today.
You'll have to have faith.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to wrap up here, but there are several other things that ought to be discussed a little bit. Ranked choice will provide more choice for voters. They'll have more people to vote for. Ranked choice will discourage overtly negative campaigning. I talked about that. If you're going to be really negative toward other people who, the person who may vote for is their primary person, and then secondly, they may vote for you. They find out you're shooting at their mouth against their person they support, they're not going to support for you. So it makes people a little bit more civil. Let's see. Well, you know about gerrymandering and party geography and all of that stuff. I talked about that, so I just don't want to miss something here. Advantages of ranked choice voting. It'll increase participation and competitiveness, and we talked about that. It'll minimize vote splitting, the kind of stuff that Ralph Nader did. And I think that covered pretty much whatever I wanted to cover here.
Do you have a gut feeling, since you have studied this? I have read that California's 2 Republican candidates seem to be, or appearing to be, ranked 1 and 2, and that the 2 top candidates will be a Republican. Do you believe that? I mean,
I just looked at the data about 2 hours ago,
okay.
and a number of Democrats have dropped out either legally or just dropped out and are not campaigning anymore. The problem is their name is going to be on the ballot because the ballots were sent out. Their ballots were sent out. So, but I don't think you're going to have a situation where the 2 Republicans are going to be the people chosen, and they will be chosen with 23 or 24% of the vote,
Okay.
or even 18% of the vote. That's a real possibility. It's still a possibility. And you ought to have ranked choice voting after a juggle primary like that, or you're going to end up in that kind of a situation. So it was an example that I used. It's a very prominent example. And, but I think you're probably going to have a Democrat and a Republican go into the ballot, where the law in California requires that 2 go into a ballot for the final election. I think they also, if they're going to have this kind of system, an open system, they ought to have 4 going into the election, and then they wouldn't run into the problem of having 2 Republicans there who represent a very small proportion of the voting public in California.
I threw up just a sample of a ballot.
Oh, yeah, good for you.
Yeah, just in case.
This is what it looks like. This is much better than what I had. This is what it looks like when you've got 6 candidates. And you're going to rank Avery first, Charlie second, and so on. And then if Evelyn, you can't tell by this.
You can't tell what the results are, it's just an example of
If
what it
Evelyn
would look like.
comes out last, then the votes that went to Evelyn would be redistributed to all the other candidates.
Okay.
So for example, on this one, if I voted for Avery and Avery was last, then my vote would go to Charlie.
It would go to all of them.
But wouldn't it go to my vote? If I personally voted for Avery, then my second choice was
Oh,
Charlie.
that's right, your choice. I was thinking you were bulleting. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it would go to whoever you wanted them to go to.
So in this example ballot, if this was my ballot, my vote would go to Charlie, right? Because that was my second choice.
Yes, that's right, sorry, that's right.
All right.
And in this example, you had said before, Bob, that normally it's 3 or 4 choices. You don't have more than 4, so there wouldn't be you wouldn't have ranked all 5. You'd have ranked your top 4, correct? Top 3 or 4. Because here you have to rank 5 people. You might not know enough about all 5 people.
Well, if you're asking, do you have an opportunity to rank all 5? The answer would be yes. But people don't have to vote 5 times. They can rank only 4 times. And a lot of people will just rank 1, they'll bullet. And I thought maybe it was confusing you because I was thinking of a bullet vote. But normally speaking, you'd vote for all 5.
So that means if you wanted to, you could just put 1 vote in for 1 person and not rank choice it?
Oh, I see, they've got candidates, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Where's the sixth candidate?
It's
Faye at the bottom.
There's 6 candidates, but only 5
5 votes?
choices.
So in this example, you can't rank all of them.
Right.
No, you cannot, but I don't know why they don't put in,
This is
It's just example.
this is off the web. This is just, you know, a random example.
they really didn't like Fay. They
I
they
tried
grew up in Fay Elementary School, and she,
I tried to get the one for the New York City primary, the mayor, but that one was so complicated. It was really very complicated, I didn't pull it off.
yeah, Jack.
When there's a concentration like this, just for example, you need a computer to,
Yeah, they have this all on a
I
computer.
know, I mean, you
You
almost
could
need
do
a
it by
computer.
hand,
I
but
think so.
I'm sorry.
You
You
need
need
it.
a computer to.
You need a computer, you couldn't do it otherwise?
No, you could count it, just
You
like
could
a
count
regular
it.
ballot. You could count it. You could do this on a paper ballot, you count the paper ballot, and then transpose them to a computer and calculate it. It'd be a lot easier to do on a computer.
They probably hired the ninja.
And in fact,
People in Georgia,
they do
yeah.
it on a paper ballot, I believe, in both Alaska and Maine. Because there is so much sensitivity to people cheating, so they want a paper ballot that they can use to identify that they had not cheated.
The question I meant to ask before was, so if we adopt ranked choice voting, what does that do to the electoral college?
Ah, that's a good question. That's a good question, and I didn't talk about that. It doesn't eliminate, of course, the electoral college. You're still selecting the president through the electoral college. But the ranked choice voting makes it less possible for a third candidate to screw up the guy or the woman who wins the popular vote. Then if he or she doesn't do well in the electoral college, they lose. But you have a better chance of winning, like
Hillary.
if you have a Ralph Nader type in the campaign.
Thank you, that helps a lot.
I lived in Maine before they went to ranked choice voting. In our governor election, an awful person won 39% of the vote. The independent got 33% of the vote, and the Democrat got like 22. If we'd had ranked choice voting then, it would have been between the awful one who won and the independent, and then people that voted for the Democrat who was at the bottom could have voted for what, and twice that same asshole won.
How do you feel
Where
about
was you, where were you when I needed you? I could have used that example in my,
But that was when they started, the first time he won was when they started discussing
Yeah.
going to ranked choice voting, but they didn't get it through in time, probably because he was governor and would have vetoed it. But,
yeah, well, they
It
have
was
ranked choice
awful.
voting
It
now.
was a terrible
And they, every year, the legislature, which sometimes is controlled by the Republicans, has an additional vote to get rid of ranked choice voting. And they usually win by 52, 53% of the vote. So it's not terribly popular among professional politicians.
yeah, but I think the majority should win, not a plurality.
Yeah.
It's just,
And so do the
Not
people of
ethical.
Maine.
yeah.
Yep.
it? Change the subjects a little bit. When Kathy Dalkemper lost to Mike Kelly, what happened to, was this never a sinecure? Was this district never a sinecure? Or had it been gerrymandered at that time? How did she lose?
She
Major
lost.
change.
Yeah. Kathy is a Catholic, but she's not a,
She's progressive.
yeah, it isn't a single issue for her. She recognizes all the kinds of issues that are out there. And that particular campaign where she lost a lot of the, I want to be sensitive here, I don't want to hurt. She lost a lot of the Orthodox Catholic vote. Not the Catholic vote, but the Orthodox Catholic vote. It would be like if you're trying to decide whether you're going to end prohibition, and you're looking at Methodists. And if you were in 1928, they're going to refuse to end prohibition, it was I'd call them the Orthodox Methodist vote, rather than the Methodist vote who were, I better not do that, who were sipping behind the bar or something like that. But that was the major issue.
Okay.
And she also voted for Obamacare,
That was a big.
and that
Oh,
was
that's right,
huge.
that's right.
She
Yeah.
lost because she was one of the holdouts to vote for.
That's right, I'd forgotten that, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the ranked choice voting, will help out making the elections fairer and getting the most desirable candidate, for the people who vote. It doesn't, like you said, doesn't do anything about the electoral college, but there's some benefit there. I was wondering if you're familiar with and what your thoughts are with National Popular Vote Movement, which states would agree to join this coalition, and then once they get to 270, and I figure what we're at right now, we're not too far away,
They need
actually.
two-thirds, or, I'm sorry, they need three-fourths.
Yeah.
Discuss
And
it.
so what happens then is all those states that join together with 270 or more electoral college votes use the votes of the person who came in first. And so whoever came in with the most votes across the majority of the electoral college is the winner. What do you think of that one?
I don't think that you can do it. I'd love to have you do it, but because to make an amendment, that's what you're talking about.
No. This is a compact. It's a compact among the states. It's kind of like we do with licensing laws. Nurses can work in this state, that state, this state. We all agree as a group of states that we're going to follow these rules. And so that movement is an end around to the electoral college.
What's the rule that you have in mind?
Pardon?
What's the rule that you have in mind?
It's just, the states all pass a law that says we're joining with these other states in the national popular vote, and
To substitute for the electoral
for
college,
college.
the national.
Well, no, they
popular
still do the electoral college, but they agree that their votes in the electoral college will be based on the candidate with the most votes for all those states.
22 states.
So we find the number one person in all these states that have over 270 electoral votes,
And I think it's the
and
whole
their
country.
electors to the college vote for that number one person.
Right. You can't do it because it would be unconstitutional.
Why would it?
It would be because the Constitution specifies
Well, each
that
state,
each state has an electoral number of votes based upon the
Right.
number of senators and congressmen they have.
Right.
And they can't just change how that's going to vote. Now, let me tell you a change that they have made, sub silentio, okay? In what we call in constitutional law, obiter dicta. They have required that if an elector who's elected by the people during the presidential election, if the elector changes his or her mind and doesn't vote for the people that for the candidate that the people in that state have voted for, that's called a unfaithful elector. And the Supreme Court very recently has said you can't be an unfaithful elector. You have to vote for that candidate. You can't make up your own mind. That still means that the Electoral College is very powerful, but they have to vote for who their people have voted for in the majority in that state. It still means, though, that a small state has much more power in their electoral vote than a large state, because the small state gets 2 senators regardless of how small the state is, and they get at least 1 congressman regardless of the size. That's what I meant by the example when I gave to Wyoming, about Wyoming. But I know that the other would be considered unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court wouldn't allow it.
Especially this one.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and, well,
So how do we deal with states, how do we deal with the fact that somebody wins the popular vote but loses the electoral college? How do we get a candidate, how do we deal with that problem?
The candidate who wins the electoral college takes the presidency in spite of the fact that they don't win
The
in the
majority?
popular vote. But what I'm talking about here is the extent to which the ranked choice voting can
Improve
minimize
that?
that. Or mitigate is a better word for it. And we can. But Hillary Clinton and candidates like that who lost the popular vote have got to pay more attention to swing votes, swing states, in order to win a critical number of electoral votes. It's
How
just
do
the
we
way
get
the earth-
states fired up to go in this direction?
Yeah, it's one of the consequences, one of the reasons that that happens is we have such a large country. And it is difficult to hold that country together. The Civil War is a perfect example. The fight against the British, the fight against the Canadians in 1812, all had certain sections of the country said, no, we don't want to fight. And other sections of the country said, we want to fight. And you've got to pay attention to a large body of land where geographical differences are really salient. Farm areas versus, we see this in gerrymander. Farm areas which are very different constituted economically than city areas. And so we can't have this majority votes in that case. I'd like to have more and more majority votes, as much as we can possibly do under the confines of the Constitution. But there's going to be limitations.
When I was looking at some of this information about ranked choice voting, I did run across in a couple of different places the idea that if ranked choice voting is used, that the candidates really need to speak more to issues than to parties.
Yes, it's true.
And I think that would have a huge impact on the outcome of elections.
Yeah.
If people really needed to listen to what candidates were saying.
Yes, that's right. Something I didn't mention was that the kind of people who vote in that 5%, the kind of people who vote in those primaries and the general elections who represent just the 5% of the eligible population, they're the most, and this includes both Democrats and Republicans, they're the most partisan. And by partisanship, I mean they're more interested in being elected than they are in governing. They're the most partisan. And you have government that is not very good with very partisan people on both sides. You have very little compromise and very little understanding, and you have a lot of anger. So ranked choice voting will pull people out who normally wouldn't vote in larger numbers. And it's really to your point, that they're interested in issues and they're not trying to figure out, what swear word they can use to identify their opponent.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you've been at this now for an hour and a half.
Bob, this is the ballot for New York City
Oh,
mayor.
okay.
Just throwing that
We
up
got
there.
1, 2, 3, 4,
But
5.
they're not all on there. I couldn't,
Yeah,
get them on
okay,
there.
yeah, you can,
Yeah, that's how it was laid out.
But it looks like you can only vote for
Five.
the top 5.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
well, they can make that choice.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Mandami was at the top.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how it was.
Do you
Okay.
consider the results of the New York mayoral election? Do you consider the results of that election to have been the valid majority rule?
Signed on to it.
I'll ask you.
I read an article just recently about it.
Thank you.
Bob, thank you very much.